In the early dawn of a suburban American town, everything is still shrouded in a light mist as Alex awakens in his modest yet cozy home. Through the large windows of the living room, the first rays of the sun break through, casting golden glimmers on the worn walls that recall countless family gatherings. At this early hour, when the world is still asleep, there is a quiet resolve in the air, a decision that Alex has been making for years, but which must now finally break the bonds of family obligations. Alex is the elder of two brothers, and since his youth, the burden of responsibility that he longed to forget has rested on his shoulders. He remembers how his parents always relied on him, whether it was home repairs, financial support, or even emotional comfort when his younger brother Jake, beloved by all, got into trouble again. At this moment, sitting at the table, Alex recalls sleepless nights filled with bitterness and disappointment and feels a desire for change growing within him, a desire to finally free himself from the chains of the past. The world around seems calm and ordinary. The soft rustle of the wind outside the window, the quiet sounds of the awakening city, and in the distance, the ringing of a bell at the local church. But in Alex's soul, a storm is brewing. He knows that today will be a turning point. He has already decided to sell the house, which has become a symbol of his painful duty to his family. This decision, like a quiet but inevitable storm, must break the old bonds and give him the opportunity to breathe freely. Every time the annual family gathering comes around, the parents' house turns into an arena where traditions and expectations merge into an unbearable burden. Alex remembers how on this very day, when everyone gathered for Christmas and his mother's birthday, he inevitably became the lifesaver for Jake, the golden child who always had enough parents and not an ounce of responsibility. These memories make his heart ache with bitterness and fatigue. But today, his soul already resonates with a resolute chord. No more compromises. Sitting in his room, surrounded by small items that remind him of the past, Alex slowly opens an envelope containing the final contract for the sale of the house. His hands, confident and calm, tremble slightly, not from fear, but from the strength of inner transformation. This document is not just a piece of paper, but a symbol of long-awaited freedom. He knows that as soon as his parents find out the truth, their world will crumble, and his life will finally be able to take on a new form. In this quiet dawn, when the world around is still asleep, Alex feels that the time for change has come. He takes a deep breath, allowing the cool morning to fill him with resolve. In his soul, a quiet joy grows, the joy of impending liberation, of finally being able to leave behind the pain, manipulations, and endless demands. This moment is the beginning of a new chapter, where old traditions give way to true independence, and every new dawn promises a life free from the shackles of the past. In the large, slightly worn-out parents' house, there was an atmosphere that Alex had long ceased to perceive as a celebration. Every year on Christmas and his mother's birthday, all the relatives gather here, and even though everyone feels a sense of obligatory duty, a false idol blooms on the surface. Today the house was decorated with garlands, shiny balls, and candles, but behind the bright lights hid a tension that Alex felt more acutely each year. Guests sat down at the large table covered with an expensive tablecloth, and traditional congratulations were heard. Mother Carol radiated a joyful smile, as if trying to sweep away the shadows of the past, and Father Richard, with a hint of pride and unyielding sternness, watched every move. Alex, sitting in the corner, involuntarily reminded himself that here he had always been forced to adapt to others' expectations. In his soul, a quiet storm was raging. Every sincere congratulation seemed like another attempt to hide family secrets and manipulations. The conversations flowed as usual, but at the height of the dinner, when the table was already laden with dishes and glasses sparkled under the flickering light of the chandelier, the silence was broken by a sharp voice. Jake, the younger brother, suddenly stood up, raising his glass, and his voice, full of confidence and a hint of mockery, rang out through the hall. Mom and Dad decided that I should move into Alex's house. For a moment, the entire hall froze. Alex, holding a fork in his hand, couldn't believe his ears. Jake's face changed. A mixture of amazement and pride flashed in it, but his eyes held a certain defiance, as if he expected such a denouement. The moment seemed like an eternity. Mom shuddered, frowning, Dad frowned, and all the other guests exchanged glances, full of bewilderment. Alex slowly lowered his fork, feeling the tension accumulated over years of humiliation and constant demands flaring up in his heart. He restrainedly observed what was happening, but deep down he already knew that this moment would be a turning point. Every word Jake said echoed in Alex's memory as a reminder of the past, full of sacrifices and unfulfilled expectations. In his thoughts, images of those long years surfaced when his parents constantly placed responsibility on him, and Jake, surrounded by attention and indulgence, lived without worries. Now in this hall, where every word seemed to be pronounced at a meeting, Alex felt the old grievances beginning to boil. Within him, a resolve was born. It was time to put an end to the long-standing tyranny, even if it meant shattering the illusion of the familiar family celebration. Carol's gaze, mixed with pride and anxiety, met Alex's cold gaze. The atmosphere in the hall changed. Everyone present understood that the traditions they were so proud of could no longer hide the truth. The day when the family gathering turned into an arena of confrontation became the starting point for change. In this silence filled with unspoken accusations and the anticipation of an impending storm, the realization arose that life would never be the same again. In the center of the hall, where a contrived idol once reigned, an unexpected silence fell. Alex slowly rose from the table, his face cold and calm, as if he had long been waiting for this moment. He pulled out an envelope from his pocket, inside which lay the final contract for the sale of the house, and, without losing a second, said, "This is funny because I sold the house last week." These words, spoken in an even and confident voice, seemed to cut through the air, and the entire atmosphere in the hall froze. Every sound, every movement seemed amplified by the unexpectedness of the revelation. Immediately, a storm of emotions erupted. Jake's face paled, and his smile, instantly turning to horror, could not hide the inner shock. Mother, Carol, seemed stunned. Her eyes widened as if trying to comprehend what was happening. Father, Richard, coughed, as if the bitterness of betrayal overwhelmed him, and for a moment he lost his voice. In the hall hung a silent panorama. Every glance, every fleeting movement spoke of the fact that the familiar world was beginning to crumble, and now before everyone stood Alex, resolute and unshakable. Deep down, Alex felt how the years of pain and disappointment merged into a single river of liberation. He remembered the endless nights when he was left alone, trying to bear the burden of family expectations. Every call, every request, all this became an unbearable pressure that he could no longer endure. Now at this decisive moment, his heart beat steadily, as if preparing for a new life, free from manipulations and false traditions. "I will no longer be their savior," he quietly repeated to himself, feeling a sense of strength and, at the same time, cold resolve growing within him. The reaction of those present was instantaneous and tumultuous. Jake, unable to hide his bewilderment, coughed and began to stutter, trying to gather his words, but they did not come. Mother began to nervously fidget with her hands, her voice trembling as she tried to ask questions, and Father restrained his anger, leaning forward as if trying to understand the logical sequence of what had happened. The guests present at the family gathering exchanged glances, their faces expressing a mixture of surprise, disbelief, and hidden sympathy for Alex. This was the moment when the long years of seeming idyll suddenly revealed themselves, and under the mask of traditions, harsh reality was exposed. Alex slowly handed the envelope to Jake, as if offering him a chance to face the truth. His words, filled with irony and contempt, echoed through the hall. "Knowing that you will always try to turn the situation around, I even brought evidence." Each page of the contract, each signature became a symbol of long-awaited liberation, proof that now control over the house, and consequently, part of their shared life, no longer belonged to the family based on manipulations and irresponsibility. At the moment when Jake opened the envelope and his cry, "No, no, no!" echoed through the hall, Alex felt the invisible chains that bound him to the past finally breaking. With each word he spoke, a sense of liberation and inner peace grew in his heart. The gaze of his parents, filled with a mixture of shame, despair, and anger, was for him the final confirmation that his life would no longer be subject to the old rules. This moment became a turning point, the beginning of a new chapter where Alex's truth, strength, and resolve would forever change the course of events, leaving behind family ties and giving hope for a future without falseness and pretense. After the shocking announcement and how Alex handed over the envelope with the contract, chaos reigned in the house. Immediately after, Jake cried out, "No! No! No!" The air filled with sharp sounds. Someone nervously shuffled things. Someone fell silent, and the gazes of those present darted in search of explanations. The house, which for years had served as a place of seeming family idol, turned into an arena for emotional outbursts, where every word took on the weight of betrayal and disappointment. Mother, Carol, soon jumped up from her seat, her voice trembling with disbelief and pain. "How could you?" "We all looked forward to this," she said, trying to find words but only repeated accusatory phrases, like echoes of a long, stale past. Father Richard hid his face behind his hand, his anger and shame mixing in an inexpressible gaze that spoke more than words. The guests at the table exchanged glances, as if trying to understand what human will is capable of when family ties finally crack. Amid the noise of accusations and screams, Alex remained outwardly calm, but inside his heart beat with unprecedented strength. Every minute of this whirlwind reminded him of the years of patience and countless sacrifices he made for the family. In his thoughts, fragments of memories echoed. Nights when he sat in silence, enduring another call from his desperate mother, in moments when his own dreams were shattered by the sharpness of indifference. But now in this chaos, he felt how every drop of pain, collected over the years, was turning into resolve, the resolve to no longer be a hostage to others' expectations. Soon after the incident, Alex's phone rang more than once. With each new incoming call, endless messages poured in, from relatives, friends, even acquaintances who tried to understand what was happening. His phone screen glowed with messages, each carrying a piece of accusations, complaints, and demanding requests to return to the familiar order. Alex, immersed in thoughts, struggled to focus. His mind, like a torn canvas, fluttered between memories and the present, trying to grasp the thread of truth in this whirlwind. While the house continued to crackle with family conflicts, a new strength was born within Alex. In every harsh word, in every offended glance, he saw an opportunity for rebirth. He felt how the old illusions that bound him to the past dissolved under the onslaught of truth. The look at the phone, the calls, the complaints, all this was just an echo of the old world that no longer had power over his destiny. He quietly whispered to himself, "This is the end. I will no longer allow you to dictate my terms." Every word spoken was like a step towards liberation from the invisible chains that bound his soul. At this moment, when the house already seemed like an arena for the collapse of traditions and betrayals, Alex understood that change was inevitable. His inner voice told him that now was the moment for a new life, a life where truth and justice would become the foundation, and old family ties would remain only in memory. He looked out the window where rain was raging behind the glass, a symbol of purification and renewal. This rain washed away the remnants of old grievances, leaving behind clarity and readiness for change. Sitting in the silence of his new awareness, Alex felt for the first time that the liberation he had dreamed of for so long was not just possible, but already on the horizon. The house, filled with the echo of screams and accusations, gradually gave way to a new beginning. A beginning where every word, every action became a step towards true freedom. After the chaos that erupted in the house, Alex understood that the emotional wounds and grievances had already gone beyond family quarrels. He gathered all the documents, screenshots of messages, financial reports, and evidence confirming his words and the behavior of his parents and Jake. In his hand was the envelope with the contract for the sale of the house, which had become a symbol of his long-awaited liberation. Deciding that further disputes would no longer bring him peace, Alex hired an experienced lawyer who helped gather all the materials for the court proceedings. In those days, his thoughts alternated between cold resolve and painful bitterness. He knew that he would have to fight not only against lies, but also against long-standing family traditions that had cost him years of suffering. In the courtroom, A tense silence reigned, broken only by the rustling of papers and the quiet whispering of those present. Alex, sitting among his lawyers, seemed completely calm. His gaze was cold and resolute, and every word was spoken with a strength backed by truth. His parents and Jake, in turn, were in a state of obvious confusion and bewilderment. Their accusatory glances and hasty statements could not hide the growing uncertainty. This hall became an arena not just for a legal battle, but for a clash of two worlds. The world of Alex, filled with pain, but striving for freedom, and the world of the family, where manipulations and lies had reigned for years. Alex's lawyer began to present the evidence: detailed financial reports, correspondence that clearly showed the manipulative strategy of the parents, and, of course, the contract for the sale of the house, which became the final blow to the old foundations. Each document, each line of text caused an invisible storm in the courtroom. The judge, carefully examining the presented materials, asked questions, and the lawyer answered with confident clarity, demonstrating that the truth would finally prevail. Alex listened to all this, feeling how with each minute his soul was increasingly freed from the shackles of the past, and his inner voice said, "This is the long-awaited retribution, a step towards a new life." After several tense hours of court debates, the moment of truth arrived. The judge, relying on the weight of the evidence, ruled in favor of Alex. His parents and Jake were found guilty of emotional abuse, financial misconduct, and manipulations, which was not only illegal, but also a moral defeat for them. The court's decision marked the culmination of the struggle for truth. The truth that had been hidden for so long behind the facade of family traditions now triumphed in the courtroom. Alex felt his heart filled with mixed feelings: relief, satisfaction, and bitterness over the loss of the old world that now finally crumbled into dust. After the verdict was announced, Alex left the courtroom, as if renewed, but at the same time emptied. He realized that the legal victory was only part of his long journey to inner healing. On the one hand, he felt pride that he had been able to stand up for his rights, prove his innocence, and put an end to the pressure. On the other hand, his soul ached from the loss of family ties, even if they were toxic. In those minutes, he allowed himself to remember all the sleepless nights, all the endless conversations in which he tried to convey his despair to his parents, and understood that every drop of pain was necessary to come to this moment. The legal battle became not just a fight for justice, but a symbol of the final break with the past. The court decision, backed by moral retribution, brought Alex not only financial compensation, but also the long-awaited sense of inner freedom. He knew that now, when the truth had triumphed, his life would gain a new foundation, free from the old manipulations and pain. His gaze, directed towards the future, spoke of a world ahead of him where he could finally find peace and happiness. This moment became the starting point for a new stage, a stage where he could live for himself, build his own destiny, and finally find the harmony he had longed for so long.